shelves that are on the right.
Well, would it be this shelf?
I probably needed a higher shelf to get up
So
there.
it would be this shelf then, right?
I don't remember if it was that one or the one above it, but it
It could have been
was
this
one
one
of
then,
those
right?
two. Yeah, it was one of those two.
So it was this one or this shelf here, correct?
Correct.
Ma'am, those shelves are resting shelves, aren't they?
Do you mean resting as in?
Well, don't they have, for example, you can even see it here. And I'll bring it in so that you can see what I'm talking about. See there are little holes there? You see that right there?
Yes.
And since you've been there lots of times, you know that those shelves have some little pegs that go in there, right? To hold the shelf, right?
I know that because I see it in the photograph.
Well, you cleaned those, right?
Yes.
And you can see that throughout this whole thing, that these are really nothing more than resting shelves with shelves that rest on 4 metal pegs, right?
Yes.
You're familiar with those kinds of shelves, aren't you?
Somewhat, yes.
Well, you've been around them before, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And so you know, for example, let me just ask you, did you know that the rating on these shelves was 40 pounds? Did you know anything about that?
Objection, foundation.
Just ask.
This fact's not in evidence.
Sustained.
Do you know what the rating was for these shelves?
What do you mean by rating?
How much weight they were capable of taking?
No.
But you say that you have had experience with these kinds of shelves, right?
I think I've assembled things. If it's
Sure.
plywood, I don't know if it's solid wood or plywood.
And if you, for example, step on one of these shelves with any force, and when this was happening, you were afraid for your life, right?
Certainly.
And you weren't worried about the shelves at all, were you?
I wasn't thinking about the shelves.
No, you were worried about your life, right?
I was worried about his pursuit. Yeah.
Well, his pursuit was only relevant or important because you were worried about your life, according to you, right?
Yes.
Overruled.
Right?
I was. Yes.
And so, for example, if you're going in there, you're not thinking about making sure that everything stays clean, are you?
That's correct.
You're not going in there making sure that everything stays in order, are you?
That's right.
So, for example, if you need to step here or there, one of those two, and that's necessary, you're going to put your foot and get on up there, right?
Yeah, my foot just hit the ledge, the edge.
Sure. And you're saying that your foot just hit the edge of this shelf, right?
That's right.
It didn't go all the way into the shelving, right?
Right.
But in terms of the arrangement here, if you moved something or if you moved some shoes aside, you weren't worried about neatness, I guess is my point, when you were jumping on that shelf, were you?
Right. I wasn't even worried about moving things.
Right. Because, again, you were worried for your life, right?
Yes.
There's really nothing here that's out of order, wouldn't you agree?
I agree with that.
And you did say that you did step on the edge, and you were careful to tell me that you didn't put your foot all the way in, right?
No, I would have fallen backwards if I had done that, probably.
Sure. But actually, if you would have put your foot right there at the edge, ma'am, wouldn't that shelf, the way you describe it, if you just put it here on the lip, which is what you told us, wouldn't that shelf have tipped over?
Objection, argumentative, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Well, ma'am, you told us you were familiar with these shelves, right?
Somewhat, yes.
Well, no, you told us that you put them together, right?
Not these ones specifically.
These types of shelves.
Yes,
You
I
told
have.
us that, right?
Yes.
You know that they rest on some metal pins, right?
I don't know about that.
Well, if you put them you just told us you put these kinds of shelves together, right?
Objection, foundation.
Overruled.
I've done that, yes.
Yeah. And so we talked about the fact that these shelves rest on pins, right?
Do you mean like where the little holes are?
You put
for
them
the
together,
pegs?
sure.
Okay. I think if we're talking about
Right.
the same thing, then yes.
Objection, she did not say she put these shelves together.
Sustained.
You put shelves like these together, didn't you?
I've done that, yes. Not
And
with
you
that
know that
size.
these shelves rest on pins, right?
Objection, asked and answered. We've done this about 3 times now.
Sustained.
So you do know that if you attempt to put your foot here with any weight, and you are putting your body weight on this shelf when you go get the gun, aren't you?
Objection, argumentative, compound question. Lack of foundation.
Overruled.
Yes, I did climb up there.
Right. And you're putting your weight on that shelf is my question.
Yeah, part of my weight,
Right.
certainly.
And you weighed about, what, 135 back then?
I think I weighed 120.
All right, you weighed 120. And when you put your foot up there, you then reached up with a hand, didn't you?
Yes.
And any idea which hand you reached up with?
Whichever hand wasn't holding the top shelf.
So in addition to that, you say that you put your foot on one of these two, reach up here, and then with the other hand, you're holding on to the other shelf, right?
Yeah, I just sort of jumped up there real quick and grabbed it and jumped down.
And all without disturbing anything, right?
Yeah, I didn't need to put my foot inside on the shelf.
Right, you put it on the ledge, right?
That's correct.
And you weren't worried about not putting your full weight on it, right?
I wasn't concerned about that.
Pardon?
I wasn't thinking about that.
No, because you were worried about what was coming up behind you, right?
Yes.
And then you reached up and you got the gun that was kind of in the back, right?
It was in the corner, yes.
And then you got the gun, right?
Yes.
And then you stepped down, right?
I might have stepped down or jumped down, I don't remember.
Okay, you came down to the ground, right?
Yes.
And then you came down to the ground, and my question to you, as previously you said, there was a holster. Was there a holster there now that we've gone over there? Yes or no?
I don't.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
And you then grab the gun, right?
Yeah, I grabbed the gun.
You go into the bathroom, right?
Yes.
And you grab and turn and point it at Mr. Alexander, right?
I turned, yes.
And you told us previously that it was your belief at that point inside the bathroom that the gun was unloaded, right?
I wasn't thinking about it being loaded or unloaded. I just wanted him to stop.
Ma'am, I know you just wanted him, you want us to believe that, but didn't you testify to this jury in response to their question that you thought the gun was unloaded? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, there was a lot of people talking.
Isn't it true that you told this jury that when you stood there and you pointed that gun at Mr. Alexander, that you thought it was unloaded? You told them that in response to one of the questions, right?
Yeah, my understanding was that it was typically unloaded. It had been loaded. It had been loaded at one time. I certainly wasn't thinking of shooting him. I just wanted him to stop.
Yes or no?
Okay.
Objection, she's already testified she didn't know whether it was loaded or not.
Overruled.
That I thought it was unloaded.
Yes or no?
I don't remember thinking this gun is unloaded. I remember somehow thinking that I'm not going to shoot him. Like I wasn't thinking that. I wasn't thinking it's loaded and I want to point it at him. I just wanted him to stop. I don't remember what I was thinking necessarily. It was just, it all happened very fast.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you whether or not in response to one of the jury questions, whether or not you indicated to them, the jury, as part of the question, that as you held your hand out, that you believed the gun was unloaded. That's all I'm asking.
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
I don't remember the specific answer I gave on that. I just remember that I don't recall it being loaded, or I don't remember even thinking about whether it was loaded or not.
Then I guess would you have a quibble if I told you that that's what you said to them?
Objection, argumentative.
If it wasn't loaded, ma'am, and you told us before that Mr. Alexander told you it wasn't loaded, right?
He did.
You told us that, right?
He told me both, yes.
Yeah, you told that to the jury, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Alexander said it's not loaded, right?
He said it's not loaded, and then one day he loaded it, so he said it was loaded.
Ma'am, but you said you didn't include this part about loading. You did say that he told you it was unloaded, right? He did tell you that, right?
Yeah, initially he assured me it was not loaded.
Right. And so you go with these words of Mr. Alexander telling you that he believed it was unloaded, and then you also take your belief that you think it's unloaded, based on what he told you, and you take this, run into this closet to get that. What were you going to do with the gun? Throw it at him?
Objection, mischaracterizes testimony and is argumentative.
Sustained.
Well, what were you going to do with the gun if it's unloaded, ma'am?
I testified that I pointed it at him.
I'm not asking you what you testified to.
She's answering the question.
Then she's being non-responsive, Judge.
All right. Council approach, please.
Man, given all this predicate information that you told us about Mr. Alexander, telling you that the gun was unloaded, you believing it was unloaded, when you were getting that gun, what were you going to do with it if it's unloaded?
I was thinking of just pointing it at him because if I know personally that if a gun was pointed at me, my first instinct would be to stop. And that's what I wanted him to do.
But if he had already told you that it was unloaded, why would you believe that he was going to stop? If he had previously told you it was unloaded?
It was just a hope because that's my philosophy about if I had to look at the end of a barrel of a gun, I would stop. And I didn't have time to sit and rationalize whether or not he would care, whether it was unloaded or loaded or what. I didn't know. I just wanted him to stop.
So you grab this gun that he has told you is unloaded and you go into the bathroom, right?
That's right.
And you point that gun, right?
Yes.
You know what guns do, right?
Yes.
So if you thought it was unloaded, why are you pointing it?
Because
Sustained.
Ma'am, we've talked about in the closet, but in the bathroom. What, in the bathroom specifically, what were you hoping to accomplish? Not in the closet, but in the bathroom. What were you hoping to accomplish as you extended your arms out with an unloaded gun?
Objection, ask and answer. There was never any testimony that she pointed the gun at him in the closet. He's trying to mischaracterize the testimony to ask the same question.
Sustained. Sustained.
The light in that closet, ma'am, it was off, wasn't it? When you went in there, right?
I don't remember.
And you had no problems, though, locating the gun, right?
I don't remember having any problems.
Even though you really hadn't seen it that often, right?
Yeah, it's not something I went and looked at often. That's
Right.
correct.
But you had no problem finding it, right?
That's correct.
So it wasn't like you were so excited or so in a fog that you had any problems finding it, right? That didn't affect you at that point, right?
I don't remember having any problems. I reached around for it. It was there, and I grabbed it.
And then he came after you inside into the bathroom, and then you pointed this. In your opinion, and your testimony is that you were just pointing the gun at him when he came at you, right?
Yes.
You would agree that it requires you to put your finger on the trigger and pull it for it to fire, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Well, you were there, right?
Yes.
And so you fired the gun, you shot him in the head, and you killed him, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Mischaracterizes the evidence.
Overruled.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't have anything else.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take the afternoon recess at this time. Please be back in the designated area at 10 minutes after 3. Please remember the admonition. You are excused. Council, please approach.